It was just past midnight when I finally settled into bed, exhausted from another long day at work. My house had always been my sanctuary, a place where I could finally breathe and forget the world outside. I locked every door, double-checked the windows, and set the alarm. Every precaution I could think of was in place. I told myself I was safe. I truly believed it. The kind of safety you feel after years of routine, after years of trusting the familiar. My husband had passed a few months ago, leaving me alone, yet I had adjusted. My children were grown, my neighborhood quiet, and the nights predictable. But at 3 a.m., everything changed. It started with this subtle sound, a soft scraping, almost imperceptible, coming from the hallway outside my bedroom. My heart skipped a beat. I froze, straining to hear. It could have been anything: the wind, a branch brushing against the window, the pipe settling, but deep down, I knew better. Then came the second sound, a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, only the tone, low, urgent, almost a warning. I sat upright, my pulse racing. My bedroom door creaked slowly, as if someone or something was testing its strength. I grabbed my phone and dialed my daughter's number, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried my son, also no answer. Panic rose, curling like a snake in my chest. Every precaution I had taken suddenly felt meaningless. I was alone, completely alone. I decided to investigate. Silently, I slid out of bed and crept toward the hallway. Every step was deliberate, measured. My heart pounded in my ears. As I reached the living room, I saw it. The back door, slightly ajar, moving with a faint creak, as if pushed by someone's hand. I froze. The air felt different, thicker, heavier. And then I heard it clearly, the unmistakable sound of footsteps moving upstairs toward my bedroom. Fear gripped me, but so did determination. I had lived through hard times. I had survived loss, illness, and heartbreak. I wouldn't let fear paralyze me now. I dialed 911, whispering my location and situation. Then I grabbed the heaviest object I could find, a fireplace poker, and waited, every nerve on fire. The footsteps stopped. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. I could hear my own breathing loud and ragged in the stillness of the house. And then, a shadow moved across the hallway. I gasped, gripping the poker tighter. The intruder, or whatever it was closer than I thought. And I realized with a sinking feeling that my illusion of safety had been shattered. The shadow in the hallway didn't move like a human should. It glided, or maybe it was my imagination, but my instinct screamed that something was wrong. My hand shook around the poker, every muscle tense. I crept closer, step by silent step. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel, the dim light casting eerie shapes across the walls. I noticed something I hadn't before. The curtains were swaying, though the windows were locked. A draft? Or something else? Suddenly, a loud crash came from the kitchen. My heart leapt into my throat, the sound of breaking glass. I wasn't imagining it. Someone or something was inside my home. I had no choice. I ran to the stairs, grabbing my phone as I went. I called my neighbor, whispering urgently, "Someone's in my house. Please call the police." Her voice trembled on the other end as she promised to be on the line. I reached the living room and froze. The coffee table was overturned, a vase shattered on the floor, petals scattered like blood across the carpet. The shadow flickered again. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate breathing behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. My mind raced. Was this a burglar, a ghost, or something far worse? I backed into the hallway, ready to confront whatever or whoever was lurking in the darkness. My instincts told me to hide, but my heart refused to let me flee. As I moved toward the stairs, I noticed the kitchen door slightly ajar. A dim light flickered inside. I held my breath and peeked in. And that's when I saw it. A figure crouched over my countertop, rifling through drawers. It turned slowly, as if aware of my gaze. I couldn't see the face clearly, but the eyes, those eyes, were fixed on me. Fear threatened to paralyze me, but I forced myself to move. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice louder than I intended. The figure didn't answer. It simply stood and slipped into the shadows, disappearing before I could even blink. I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't safe. Not in my own home. Not ever again. I couldn't move. The figure had vanished, but its presence lingered in the air like smoke. I pressed my back against the wall, gripping the poker so tightly my knuckles went white. Every instinct screamed at me. This wasn't a random break-in. Someone had been inside my home for a reason. I decided I had to find out what they were after. Carefully, I made my way to the kitchen. Drawers were ransacked, papers scattered across the floor. But one thing caught my eye, a small folded envelope tucked under the fridge. I picked it up, hands trembling. The envelope was unmarked, plain, but the weight inside told me it was important. I pulled it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, my handwriting, but I didn't remember writing it. The message was short, chilling. You think you're safe. You're not. A chill ran down my spine. How could someone know? And why leave it in my kitchen? The questions swirled in my mind, each one heavier than the last. I decided to check the rest of the house. Upstairs, everything seemed normal at first glance. My bedroom untouched, my closet doors closed, but when I opened my son's old room, the one I had converted into a guest room, the temperature dropped suddenly. My breath formed little clouds in the air. And then I saw it, a small black camera hidden in the corner near the ceiling, its lens angled toward the bed. Someone had been watching me. The reality hit me like a punch. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being paranoid. Someone had planned this. Someone had been inside my home, and they were still out there, waiting for the right moment. My heart raced, and I realized that the next steps would determine everything. I had to act, but carefully. Every creak, every shadow could be a threat. I gathered the envelope, the poker, and my phone, ready to confront the danger or survive it. At that moment, I understood the truth. The safety I had believed in was an illusion, and 3 a.m. had changed everything. I couldn't ignore the evidence any longer. The camera, the envelope, the shadow. I had to face whatever was invading my life. I dialed 911 and whispered the situation to the operator, keeping my eyes on the dark corners of the hallway. As I spoke, a sound behind me froze my blood, a deliberate step, soft but unmistakable, coming from the living room. My pulse spiked. The intruder knew I had discovered them. I gripped the poker tighter, moving slowly toward the source of the noise. I'm calling the police, I warned, my voice shaking but firm. Leave now or you'll regret it. There was no response, only silence, thick, suffocating, and waiting. Then a low voice, familiar yet distorted, came from the shadows. You shouldn't have done that. I froze. Something in that voice made my skin crawl. I took a cautious step forward, the poker raised. A figure emerged, tall, cloaked in darkness, face partially hidden by a hood. My breath caught in my throat. I demanded again, "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure tilted their head, almost mockingly. "You have something I need," they said, "and I will take it." I realized with a shock they were after the envelope, the same one I had found in the kitchen. My heart pounded. "You won't get it," I said, summoning every ounce of courage I had. The figure advanced slowly, but before they could reach me, the operator's voice came through my phone. "Police are on the way. Stay on the line and remain calm." The intruder paused, as if weighing their options. Then, in a swift motion, they darted toward the back door. I ran after them, but they vanished into the night before I could catch a glimpse. Shaking, but determined, I knew this wasn't over. Whoever this was, they knew too much. And I realized the terrifying truth. The danger had just begun. I returned to the house, every nerve on edge. The envelope I had found earlier felt heavier than ever in my hands, as if it carried the weight of the world. I sat down at the kitchen table, determined to read it thoroughly. Unfolding the paper, I saw words that made my stomach turn. Your family has a secret. Someone is not who they seem. Trust no one. My hands trembled. Could this be a cruel prank or was it real? I replayed the night's events in my mind. The footsteps, the shadow, the intruder. Everything pointed to someone inside my life, someone close. I knew I couldn't wait for the authorities to piece this together. I had to act. I called my daughter first, whispering what I had found. Her voice trembled, but she promised to come over immediately. While waiting, I explored the house for anything else suspicious. I noticed my husband's old study, usually locked and forgotten. Something compelled me to check it. Inside, I discovered a small, hidden compartment in his desk. I opened it slowly. Inside was a stack of letters, each one revealing secrets I had never known. Evidence of clandestine meetings, hidden bank accounts, and coded messages between people I had trusted blindly. The realization hit me like a hammer. Someone had been manipulating my family for years. My daughter arrived just as I finished reading. Together, we pored over the letters, connecting dots I hadn't even noticed before. Every shadow, every whispered warning, every uneasy feeling now made sense. But the more we uncovered, the more I realized how dangerous this knowledge was. Whoever had left the envelope knew we had found the letters. They would return, and they would stop at nothing. That night, I decided I couldn't sleep in my own home. I packed essential items, keeping the letters and envelope closed, and prepared to stay awake until morning. I felt the weight of fear and responsibility settle over me. The intruder was still out there, watching, waiting, and I knew one misstep could cost me everything. Hours passed in tense silence. Every creak of the house felt amplified, every shadow a potential threat. I clutched the letters and envelope, moving slowly from room to room, alert to even the faintest noise. Then at exactly 3:15 a.m., I heard it, a soft knock at the front door. My heart froze. No one knew I was still awake, yet someone was here. I peeked through the peephole. Outside, the porch was empty, but the faint glow of a flashlight reflected in the driveway. Someone was waiting, watching, testing my nerves. I backed away and dialed 911 again, whispering for immediate help. The operator assured me officers were on the way. I couldn't wait. I had to protect myself. Suddenly, I noticed the door handle moving. Slowly, deliberately. Someone was trying to enter. I grabbed the poker, holding it ready, my mind racing with the knowledge of the letters and secrets I carried. Then the knock came again, louder this time, accompanied by a voice I didn't recognize. "You can't hide forever. Give it to me or there will be consequences." The voice sent shivers down my spine. Whoever this was knew what I had found. The intruder wasn't just a burglar. They were someone with a plan, someone who had been tracking me, waiting for the right moment to strike. I whispered to myself, trying to stay alert, "You can survive this." And just as suddenly as it started, the sound stopped. The porch was empty, the flashlight gone, but I knew it was only temporary. They would return. That night, I learned a hard truth. Safety was a fragile illusion, and vigilance was the only thing keeping me alive. The next day, I couldn't shake the events of the night. Every shadow in my home felt alive, every unexpected sound a potential threat. The envelope and letters lay on the kitchen table, evidence of a danger I couldn't yet fully understand. Then around midday, there was a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat. Hesitant, I peered through the peephole. A man stood there, mid-40s, dressed plainly, but with the presence that immediately felt different. He introduced himself as Detective Harris, claiming he had been investigating a series of home intrusions in my area. Something about him felt trustworthy. Perhaps it was the way he studied my house without fear, or the quiet authority in his voice. I explained everything: the envelope, the letters, the intruder at 3 a.m., and the hidden camera. Harris listened carefully, nodding. He said, "You're in danger, but you're not alone. Someone has been targeting you because of information your late husband left behind. That envelope and the letters, they're more than just warnings. They're evidence of a much bigger plan." He helped me organize the letters and decipher cryptic notes that I had missed. Slowly, patterns emerged: names, dates, even locations tied to a mysterious network of people who had been manipulating events around my family for years. For the first time since the break-in, I felt a small spark of hope. I wasn't facing this alone. Harris promised to keep watch and even installed additional cameras throughout the house while I prepared for the inevitable next encounter. That night, I lay awake thinking of the events. I realized that the danger wasn't just in the shadows. It was in people I had trusted, in secrets buried deep. But with Harris by my side, I had a chance.
And for the first time in days, I allowed myself to believe that I might survive the next 3 a.m.
The following night, I tried to calm myself. Harris had left after ensuring the house was secure, and I had double-checked the locks. Yet, at precisely 3 a.m., the familiar chill returned. I sat up in bed, listening. Then, the soft creak of the back door. My stomach dropped. Someone was back. I grabbed the poker and tiptoed toward the sound, trying not to make a single noise. I noticed the faint glow of a flashlight moving across the kitchen wall. The intruder had returned. I whispered into my phone to Harris, who was monitoring remotely. "They're here again." His calm voice instructed me to stay hidden and observe. The figure emerged into the kitchen light. A man, hood pulled over his face, tall, silent. He moved deliberately, like he knew exactly what he was doing. My heart pounded. And then, in a move I didn't expect, he froze mid-step and glanced toward the stairs. Another shadow moved behind him. Someone else. My breath caught. 2 intruders. I realized the danger had escalated beyond my worst fears. They were searching for the letters, for the envelope. But why? What were they trying to hide? Then the worst happened. The man turned directly toward me, his eyes locked with mine, cold and calculating. I knew I had seconds to act. I slammed the poker down on the floor, creating a loud clatter. The man flinched. I used the distraction to grab my phone and back toward the stairs, calling out for help. The intruders hesitated, then fled into the night, vanishing as mysteriously as they had appeared. My body shook from adrenaline and fear. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that this was only the beginning. Whoever these people were, they would return. And next time, I might not be so lucky. The following morning, I met with Detective Harris at my kitchen table. The letters, envelope, and notes were spread out like pieces of a puzzle. I had been examining them for days, but now, with Harris's guidance, the patterns became undeniable. He pointed to a series of coded messages in the letters. "Look here," he said. "These aren't random. They correspond to dates, names, and locations. Your husband discovered something dangerous, something powerful." My hands trembled. But why would someone want me? I'm just me. Harris leaned in, voice low. "You're not just anyone. You hold the key to exposing them. The intruders aren't random criminals. They're connected, and they believe the letters contain information that could ruin them." As we decoded more, the horrifying truth emerged. My husband had stumbled upon a criminal syndicate, operating under the guise of legitimate businesses. The letters contained proof, financial records, names, and transactions that tied the syndicate to people I had once trusted. Every fear I had felt over the past nights suddenly made sense. The envelope, the camera, the intruder, they weren't personal attacks. They were calculated moves to silence me, to keep the secret buried. I realized the stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. This wasn't just about my safety. It was about exposing corruption, survival, and protecting my family. Harris and I made a plan. I would stay hidden, secure the evidence, and prepare to face the syndicate head-on. The 3 a.m. threat had been a warning, and now I knew exactly what I had to do. But even with the truth in my hands, one question haunted me. Could I survive the next encounter? That night, I stayed awake, every sense alert. Harris had positioned cameras and monitors, and he was on the line with me, guiding every move. The clock ticked closer to 3 a.m., and I knew they would come. At 2:58 a.m., I heard the faintest creak, a signal that my worst fears were about to come true. The intruder appeared, moving cautiously through the shadows. But this time, I was ready. I grabbed the letters, holding them close like a shield, and stepped into the hallway. "I have what you want," I called, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. The figure froze. Another shadow emerged. They had underestimated me. Harris instructed me to keep moving toward the living room, where cameras would capture everything. The intruders lunged, but the moment they stepped into the light, Harris was already outside, along with police officers. The intruders froze, caught between escape and capture. Within seconds, they were apprehended. I collapsed onto the floor, trembling but relieved. The letters, the envelope, the secrets, they were safe. And for the first time in days, I felt the calm of safety return. In the weeks that followed, the syndicate was exposed.
Friends I had once trusted were revealed to be part of the conspiracy. But I survived, not just by luck, but by courage, vigilance, and determination. That 3 a.m. night had changed everything. I thought I was safe. I wasn't. But now I knew I could survive anything, and I would never forget the lesson. Safety is fragile. Secrets are dangerous. And sometimes the darkest hours bring out the strongest courage.